Do you know the exact devastating cost of a missing piece of paper signed by a notary public? For me, it didn't cost money. It cost the fundamental human right to say goodbye to my own life. My name is Marina, and I discovered in the worst possible way that 20 years of shared breath, of mingled finances, of secrets whispered in the dead of night, and of a life built patiently, brick by brick, mean absolutely nothing to the rigid Brazilian hospital system if you don't have a civil union certificate in your wallet to prove you exist. It all started with a dull, sickening thud in the kitchen. It was 7:14 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday. I remember the exact minute because I was looking at the microwave clock. Clara, my wife, yes, my wife, I don't care what the law or her church says, was making our morning coffee. I heard the ceramic cup hit the floor and shatter. When I ran in, she was already down. The left side of her beautiful, expressive face was melted, drooping like wax under heat. Her eyes were wide open, full of a lucid, desperate terror, as she tried to form words that only came out as thick, unintelligible moans. Stroke. The diagnosis flashed in my mind like a blinding neon sign. I didn't panic. Love didn't let me panic. I went into autopilot. I called the ambulance. I cleared her airway. I put her in the recovery position. I held her cold hand and promised her, over and over, that everything would be okay. I lied. Because the real nightmare wasn't seeing the love of my life have a massive stroke on our kitchen floor. The nightmare began 40 minutes later at the emergency reception of Santa Catarina Hospital. I was sweating, still in my pajamas under a raincoat, clutching her purse like a lifeline. "Patient's name?" asked the receptionist, a woman whose sheer indifference felt like violence. "Clara Bittencourt. She had a stroke. She needs a neurologist and a CT scan now. Every second counts." Degree of kinship? The question came automatic, cold, bureaucratic, a wall slamming down between me and Clara. I froze. For 20 years, we had danced around that question to protect ourselves. To the world, we were best friends, partners in business, cousins in extreme situations. But there, with her possibly dying on the other side of those double swinging doors, I couldn't lie. I wouldn't diminish us. "I am her wife." The receptionist finally stopped typing and looked up. She measured me from my messy hair to my mismatched socks. I saw the judgment pass through her eyes, quick but unmistakable. A microsecond of prejudice that would determine my immediate future. "Documents?" she asked, holding out a hand. "What?" "I don't carry a marriage certificate around. We aren't married on paper, but we've lived together for 20 years. I pay for her health insurance. Look in her wallet, my card is there. Without legal documentation, ma'am. You are just classified as a companion. And the emergency room is currently restricted to direct family only due to overcrowding. I need the contact of a direct family member. Father, mother, sibling." I felt like she had physically slapped me. "They live in Paraná. It will take them 6 hours to get here by plane. I am her family. I am the one who knows her allergies, her medications. Not according to the hospital bylaws, ma'am. Please calm down or I will have to call security to escort you out. Give me her parents' number so we can get authorization for procedures." I gave it to her. I had no choice. If I didn't, they might delay her treatment. I handed the woman I loved over to the very people who had rejected her for 2 decades. I was banished to the general waiting room, a gray purgatory of plastic chairs and a television muttering bad news on low volume. I spent 6 agonizing hours there. 6 hours without knowing if she was alive, if she had woken up, if she was scared and looking for me. And then they arrived. Mr. Geraldo and Mrs. Irene, the parents who hadn't visited their daughter in 10 years because they didn't agree with her lifestyle choices. They walked into the waiting room with their rolling suitcases, looking like they owned the entire building. When Mrs. Irene saw me, she didn't offer a hug. She didn't ask how I was coping. She just pursed her lips into a thin, hard line of disapproval. "What did you do to her?" was the first thing she said to me in a decade. "Me? Dona Irene, she had a stroke. It's a medical condition. This is because of that breathless life you two lead here in this chaotic city. It's stress. It's a punishment. I always told her God would collect his due." The doctor came out at that exact moment, looking weary. "Family of Clara Bittencourt?" I jumped up, every nerve ending screaming, but Mr. Geraldo was faster. He stepped squarely in front of me, physically blocking my view of the doctor with his broad back. "That's us," he announced with the authority of biology. "We are the parents." The doctor didn't even look at me. His focus narrowed entirely to the two people who claimed blood relation. He started explaining the situation in hushed, serious tones. Words like severe ischemic event, induced coma, and risk of permanent cognitive sequelae floated back to me like shards of glass. I tried to listen over Geraldo's shoulder, catching fragments of the conversation that should have been mine. I was the one who knew she had stopped taking her baby aspirin last month because it irritated her stomach. I was the one who knew her fears. When the doctor invited them to enter the ICU for the first short visit, I couldn't just stand there anymore. "I'm coming too," I said, my voice trembling but determined, taking a step forward toward the restricted doors. Mrs. Irene turned around faster than I thought possible for a woman her age. She placed her hand flat on my chest, stopping me physically. The touch wasn't violent, but it was incredibly cold and hostile. "No," she said firmly. "You are not going anywhere. The ICU only allows 2 visitors at a time. We are her parents. We have priority. I can wait. I can go in after you." "You don't understand, Marina," she interrupted, her eyes hard like marbles. "You are not family. You are just the friend who shared the apartment for convenience. You can go home now. We'll take it from here." The ICU door clicked shut behind them, sealing me out. I stood there, utterly alone in a room full of people, excluded from the life I had built myself by the very people who had abdicated their place in it years ago. But the exclusion wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what I had overheard the doctor say just before the door closed. "We need to discuss transfer options as soon as she is stable enough to be moved." Transfer. They were going to take her away. I waited another 3 agonizing hours, my phone battery dying, my hope dying with it. Night fell outside, turning the hospital reception into a gloomy cave illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights that made everyone look sick. Finally, Geraldo and Irene came out. They looked exhausted, aged 10 years in a few hours, but there was a new rigidity in their posture, a terrifying sense of ownership and purpose. I stood up, my anxiety exploding into motion. "How is she? Did she open her eyes? Did you tell her I'm here waiting?" Irene stopped in front of me. She was holding a wooden rosary, her knuckles white from clutching the beads so tightly she might break them. "She is in a coma, Marina. She doesn't hear anything." She said it without emotion, flatly, as if she were talking about a broken appliance that needed repairs. We made the arrangements with the doctor. As soon as the intracranial pressure decreases, we are taking her home to Curitiba. We have a cousin who is a director at a good Catholic hospital there. She will be well taken care of, by her real family. My world collapsed into dust. "You can't do that. Her life is here." Her job at the prosecutor's office, her friends, her doctors. She has the best care possible right here. She has no life here anymore. Irene exploded, her facade of calm finally cracking. And for the first time, I saw genuine tears in her eyes. Not of sadness, but of angry fanaticism. Look what this city and this life did to her. The stress, this life away from God and decency. If she had stayed with us, none of this would have happened. We are taking her home to heal, and we are going to take care of her the right way. God's way. God's way? I shot back, my anger finally overriding my ingrained fear of them. God's way is to rip her away from the person who has loved her every single day for 20 years? I love her. I am her wife in every way that actually matters. You can't just pack her up like she's an old piece of furniture you left behind. I don't want to hear that disgusting word come out of your mouth again, Irene hissed, stepping closer, the rosary swinging like a weapon between us. You are nobody's wife. In the eyes of the church and the law, you are nothing. You are a squatter who led our daughter away from her faith. If she dies, it's on your head. It is a judgment. The words hit me like physical stones. Judgment. She actually believed Clara's stroke was divine retribution for loving me. There was no arguing with that kind of fanatical delusion. They had the law. They had biology. I only had 20 years of invisible memories. We are going to our hotel to sleep, Geraldo said, looking at the floor, too ashamed to even face me while his wife did the dirty work. Don't be here tomorrow, Marina. It's better for everyone if you just detach now. They left me alone in that cold waiting room, I didn't leave. I couldn't leave. I sat there through the night, staring at the double doors of the ICU, knowing that the woman I loved was just 20 meters away, hooked up to machines, alone in the dark, probably terrified if she could feel anything at all. I needed to get in. I didn't care about the rules, the law, or her parents' bigotry anymore. I needed to tell her I was there. I needed her to know, in whatever deep part of her brain was still working, that she hadn't been abandoned to them. I spent the entire night in that hard plastic chair, dozing off in jagged, terrified intervals, always waking up with my heart racing, thinking I had heard her call my name from the other room. By morning, I was a physical wreck. Crumpled clothes, deep dark circles under my eyes that made me look haunted, the bitter taste of vending machine coffee coating my tongue. I tried again at the ICU reception desk when the shift changed. A new nurse was there. A younger woman with kind eyes who didn't look as exhausted as the night staff. "Please," I said, my voice cracking with desperation, holding up a small, worn photo of us I kept in my wallet, a picture taken on a beach trip to Bahia 5 years ago, both of us laughing with wind-blown hair, free and happy. "Her name is Clara Bittencourt. Bed 4. I just need 5 minutes, please. I am everything she has here in this city." The nurse looked at the photo, then at my ravaged face. I saw a flicker of recognition and deep sympathy. She lowered her voice, leaning over the high counter so the other staff wouldn't hear. "Look, I really shouldn't tell you this. I could get fired." But her parents left explicit written orders with the head doctor this morning. A list of banned visitors. There is only one name on that list. Yours, Marina. The sheer calculated cruelty of it took my breath away. They hadn't just excluded me by omission. They had actively, maliciously banned me. They ensured that even if there was a sympathetic loophole, I couldn't legally get through. "They are transferring her tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. sharp," the nurse whispered, looking around nervously to make sure no supervisor was listening to her breaking protocol. "A private air ambulance is already booked. They are taking her to Paraná. Tomorrow." I had less than 24 hours before she was gone. If they took her to Paraná, I knew I would never see her again. They would hide her on their isolated farm, surrounded by crucifixes and silence, and she would die there, or wake up, which might be worse in that oppressive environment, thinking I had abandoned her when she needed me most, thinking I hadn't fought for her. "I need to see her," I said again, tears falling freely now, beyond any sense of shame or decorum. "Please, I'm begging you as one human being to another. If it were you, if it were the person you loved most in the world in there, and someone was stopping you from saying goodbye just because of who you are, what would you do?" The nurse bit her lip, conflicted. She looked at her ID badge, then at her computer screen, wrestling with her professional ethics versus her basic humanity. "Shift change for the night security is at 3 a.m., she murmured, barely moving her lips. "The night security guard, Mr. Jorge, he's older. He usually naps between 3:15 and 3:45. He sits by the side service door near the loading dock, the one we use for smoke breaks. Sometimes that door doesn't latch properly if you don't slam it." She didn't say anything else. She immediately went back to typing loudly as if we had never spoken. It was all I needed, a sliver of a chance, a crack in their fortress. I went home just long enough to shower the hospital smell off me and change into dark clothes. The apartment was unbearably silent. Her scent was still on the pillows, fading but there. The coffee cup she hadn't finished yesterday morning was still in the sink, with her red lipstick mark on the rim like a ghost of her kiss. I didn't wash it. I couldn't bear to wash it away. It was the last thing her lips had touched when she was still herself. I spent the rest of the day in a state of feverish, terrified anxiety. I wrote her a letter, just in case she woke up when I wasn't there to hold her. I wrote everything we never said out loud because we arrogantly thought we had forever to say it. I told her how much I loved her, how I would fight the entire world for her, even from a distance. I folded the letter into a tiny square that I could easily hide in my palm. At 2 a.m., I was back at the hospital, parked on a dark side street, watching the loading dock entrance. The night was cold and misty. I watched the side door the nurse had mentioned. At 3:10 a.m., I saw 2 nurses come out, laughing softly, their lighter flames flickering in the dark. They stayed for 10 minutes. When they went back in, the last one gave the door a casual, weak shove. It didn't click shut. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I waited 5 more agonizing minutes to be sure they were gone. 3:25 a.m., now or never. I walked to the door, trying to look calm, as if I belonged there and wasn't committing a crime. I pushed it gently. It gave way silently. I was in. I slipped into a sterile service corridor, fluorescent lights flickering overhead like in a horror movie. The smell of strong antiseptic was overpowering here. I followed the signs to the ICU, a path I had memorized from staring at the hospital evacuation map on the waiting room wall for 2 days. I reached the ICU double doors. There was a small security desk, and there he was, just as predicted. Mr. Jorge, chin on his chest, arms crossed, snoring softly. I slipped past him on tiptoes, holding my breath until my lungs burned. I pushed open the heavy ICU door. The sound inside was different, terrifying. It was a chorus of electronic beeps, the rhythmic whoosh hiss of mechanical ventilators, the hum of machines keeping people alive who shouldn't be. I started looking for bed numbers in the dim light. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. The privacy curtain was half drawn. I approached it, my legs shaking so hard I thought I might collapse before I reached her. I pulled back. She looked so impossibly small in that massive, technologically advanced hospital bed. Clara, who had always been a force of nature in our home, who filled any room with her loud, infectious laugh and boundless energy, was now reduced to a fragile body under rough, standardized white sheets. There were tubes everywhere invading her. A thick tube in her throat helped her breathe, her chest rising and falling with a mechanical, unnatural rhythm that had nothing to do with her own life force. Wires were connected to her chest under the gown, monitoring a heart that I knew belonged to me, even if the law said it belonged to her parents. Her face was swollen, almost unrecognizable, and the left side of her mouth still drooped slightly, even in this deep repose. I approached the bed as if entering a holy shrine, terrified of breaking the fragile spell of her existence. The fear of getting caught was outweighed only by the crushing, visceral pain of seeing her like this. I touched her hand, which was resting limply on top of the sheet. It was cold, so terrifyingly cold. It was so different from the warm, capable hands that always sought mine while we watched movies on the couch. "Hi, my love," I whispered. My voice thick with tears, I tried desperately to hold back so I wouldn't make noise and alert the nurses. "I'm here. I didn't abandon you, never." She didn't move, not a twitch. The monitors continued their indifferent, steady rhythm. Beep, 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 measuring out seconds she might not have. I squeezed her cold hand gently, trying to warm it. "They want to take you away, Clara. Your parents. They want to fly you to Paraná tomorrow morning at dawn." I needed her to know. I needed to believe that somewhere inside that impenetrable fog of the induced coma, the woman I loved could still hear me. "I won't let them separate us. I promise you. I'll come after you. I'll sell the car, I'll sublet our apartment, I'll move to their tiny, hateful town if I have to. I'll camp on their farmhouse doorstep until they let me in or call the police." It was a crazy, desperate promise, but it was the truest thing I had ever said. I couldn't imagine a life without her. 20 years don't just get erased by a plane ride and some bigoted parents. I took the tiny folded letter out of my pocket. I slid it carefully inside her pillowcase, right under her head, where no one would see it during routine checks, but where it would be physically close to her thoughts. "You have to wake up, Clara. You have to fight this. Don't let them win. Don't let them erase who we are to each other." I bitterly remembered all the times she told me we didn't need papers to prove our love, that our bond was stronger than bureaucracy. How naive we were. Love might be enough to live by happily, but it's not enough to die by with dignity. To die with dignity in this world, you need bureaucracy. You need a certificate that tells strangers this person is yours to care for. I stood there for maybe 10 minutes, just holding her hand, trying to transmit 20 years of love and shared history through touch alone. I wanted to climb into that bed, lie down next to her, hold her one last time, but the tubes and wires made it impossible. So I did the only thing I could. I leaned in close, smelling the antiseptic soap they had used on her instead of her usual vanilla scent, and kissed her forehead. right at the hairline, her favorite spot. "I love you," I whispered against her skin. "More than anything in this universe. I have always been here, and I always will be." And then I felt it. It was very faint, almost imperceptible, like the brush of a feather. A tiny spasm in her index finger against my palm. A squeeze. Very weak, but it was definitely there. My heart stopped beating for a second. I looked intently at her face. Her eyelids fluttered rapidly. "Clara, can you hear me, baby? Squeeze my hand again if you can hear me." I waited, holding my breath until my chest ached, praying to any god that might exist in this cold place of science and impending death. And she squeezed again. A little stronger this time, a definite, conscious movement. She was there. She was fighting her way back through the fog to me. A wave of hope so intense it physically hurt flooded my chest. I needed to call a doctor immediately. I needed to tell them she was reacting, that she was waking up. But if I did that, they would throw me out. They would know I broke in, and they would take her away tomorrow anyway. Maybe even faster to keep me away now that she was responsive. I was trapped in an impossible moral dilemma. Stay there in secret, sharing this miraculous moment just between the two of us, giving her strength, or scream for help and be banished forever, perhaps losing my last chance to be with her. Suddenly, the hallway light outside the glass partition brightened. I heard voices, quick, efficient footsteps approaching the ICU doors. The shift change was early, or maybe an alarm had gone off elsewhere. I had to leave. Now. "I have to go, my love," I whispered, panicked, kissing her hand frantically. But you reacted. "You are in there. Keep fighting, Clara. Please come back to me." I let go of her hand. It was the hardest physical act I've ever done. It felt like tearing off my own limb without anesthesia. I ran to the back of the dark ICU ward, hiding behind a large crash cart. I saw 2 nurses enter, talking quietly about dosages. They went to the central nursing station. I slipped through the shadows, heart pounding, heading back to the double doors. Mr. Jorge was still there, but he was stirring, stretching his arms and yawning. I ghosted past him just as he turned his chair to grab a water bottle, missing me by inches. I got out into the cold corridor. The side door was still unlatched. I escaped into the night, the cold air hitting my tear-streaked face like a slap. I was shaking uncontrollably. I had done it. I had seen her, and she had felt me. But as I walked to my car, reality hit me hard. That hand squeeze. It could have just been a reflex. It could be the last thing she ever did. And tomorrow, she would be flown away from me, to a place where our love was considered a sin to be forgotten and erased from history. The next day dawned gray and oppressive, as if the sky itself was mourning the future I was about to lose. I went back to the hospital at 6 a.m., unable to stay away even knowing I couldn't get in. I parked in the lot across the street, with a clear view of the ambulance bay. I waited, drinking terrible cold coffee. At 8:30 a.m., a different ambulance arrived. It was larger, sleeker, with the logo of a private air medical transport company on the side. My stomach turned over. It was real. They were really taking her. I saw Mr. Geraldo and Mrs. Irene come out the main door, carrying Clara's small overnight bags, looking self-righteous and determined. They looked armored in their certainty that they were doing the right thing for their daughter's soul, if not her heart. Neither looked in my direction. I was irrelevant to their plan to save her. Then the gurney came out. Clara was on it, surrounded by portable monitoring equipment, still unconscious, still unreachable to me. They loaded her into the ambulance with brutal efficiency. I wanted to get out of my car, run over there, make a scene, scream, beg them to stop, but I knew it would only cause more trauma. I knew Clara would hate being the center of a public scandal in a hospital parking lot. So I did the only thing left to me. I started my car and followed the ambulance from a distance. I followed it all the way to the executive airport in the South Zone. I stood outside the chain link fence, gripping the cold metal until my hands hurt, watching as they transferred the gurney onto a small white private jet. I saw her parents board after her, and I watched the plane taxi down the runway, gain speed, and lift off into the gray sky, taking my entire life away from me, disappearing into the low clouds of São Paulo. I went back to our empty apartment. I had never felt so alone in 45 years of life. The silence wasn't peace. It was a suffocating absence. I spent 3 days in a catatonic state, not showering, barely eating, not knowing what to do next. I tried calling her parents multiple times. Blocked. I tried calling hospitals in Curitiba where I thought she might be. Patient information is restricted to family only. The wall was solid again. On the 4th day, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, with a Paraná area code. My heart stopped beating for a second. I answered, my hands shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. Hello? Marina? The voice on the other end was weak, raspy, slurred, almost unrecognizable. But I would know it anywhere, in any lifetime, in any state. It was her. Clara. Oh my God, Clara! You're alive! You woke up? I started crying, sobbing so loud and hard I could barely hear myself over the noise of my own relief. They brought me here, she said. Every word a monumental effort, fighting against the damage in her brain. I woke up yesterday. My mother, she told me you didn't want to come to the hospital, that you were too busy with work. The cruelty of it took my breath away. They lied to her when she was most vulnerable. They tried to erase me even from her heart. It's a lie, my love. It's a damn lie! I was there every single day. They banned me from entering. I broke into the ICU at 3 a.m. just to see you. I left a letter in your pillowcase. I found it, she interrupted me, and I could hear the faint, familiar smile in her weak voice. The nurse here, she found it when she changed the sheets this morning. She read it to me in secret because I couldn't hold it. That's how I knew. That's how I got her personal phone to call you right now. The relief was so intense my legs gave out completely, and I slid down to the cold kitchen floor. The letter. My small, desperate act of rebellion had worked. It had reached her. Where are you? Which hospital? Tell me and I'm coming right now. I'll take the first flight out. No, she said firmly, and my blood ran cold. Don't come here. What? Why? Clara, I need to see you. Don't come, because I'm coming back to you, she said. And the strength in her voice increased just a fraction, fueled by her legendary stubbornness. I told them, Marina. I told them everything. I told them if they kept me here against my will, as soon as I could speak clearly, I would sue them for false imprisonment and kidnapping. I told them I would rather die in your house than live another day in theirs. I laughed, a wet, choked sound of pure adoration. That was my Clara, the tough lawyer I adored. Not even a massive stroke could take that fire away from her. They were furious, she continued, pausing to breathe heavily. My mother said if I left, she would never speak to me again. She said I was choosing hell. And what did you say? I said that it was a shame, but that I had already chosen my family 20 years ago, and my family is in São Paulo. I closed my eyes, feeling every word he